So I welcome everyone here to this webinar this afternoon. My name is Orie Van. I'm the resource person for Natafam David Consulting that has put this program together. Natafam David Consulting is a leading provider of solutions and expertise across a number of industries, including human and manpower development, operations, strategy, business engineering, amongst others. So today we are presenting COVID-19 impact on trade and global logistics. And our speakers today are Mr. Olamileko Adelano, the MD of Zenith Cares International. Zenith Cares International is a leading courier company globally. Then we have Mr. Ademolo Ogundare, is the MD of Nest Group Shipping. And then we have Mr. Kenneth Odushola Stevenson, the CEO of Natafam David Consulting. We are expecting a lot of people to join this conversation. I just want to say that before we comment, I want to say that if anybody has questions, you can type them on the chat while the discussions are going on. Then we'll bring them up at the appropriate time. So now, without wasting our time, I want to call in Mr. Kenneth Odushola to give us highlights on the subject matter before I call in Mr. Ogundare.
Actually, this particular webinar is brought about by the fact that the global logistic trade and industry has been really affected, but we may not be able to say badly affected because goods are still moving around the countries all over the world. However, we do know that in terms of the strategy for this kind of operations, there are new developments that are coming up. And what is also very important is that in terms of the trade, and several restrictions have been placed on companies in terms of operations. Hitherto, when you used to have, let's say, you move around without so much of security checks and all of that. But today you are having security check keeps logistic companies trucks or materials for days at the borders, especially if we talk about Nigeria. And let me also focus on some of the small challenges that we're facing. For instance, in recent times, maybe in the last 2-3 weeks thereabout, we've seen a new dimension to logistic operation. And many of the logistic companies, especially trucks, have been delayed by security agencies because the drivers have started manipulating things and carrying emergencies all over the Federation. And I'm sure that some of the logistic firms, in fact, Dangote, they had to issue a press statement, a full page in newspapers, to try to alert the general public that Dangote is not involved in any way by which some of the drivers are using the vehicles to carry, people around the state. They were meant basically to carry goods and from state to state. So you could see the dimension as to which some of these things are going. And for us, we believe that it's always very important to see where are we now in terms of COVID-19, where are we headed, and what are the challenges that we face within this period, and going forward, what we can do to ameliorate some of those challenges, even now and then post-COVID-19. And we use some of the things that we say post-COVID-19 sometimes very substantively. But what is important for us to understand is that every organization that is operating in Nigeria or globally, one way or the other, we use logistic companies.
Yeah.
You must move your goods around. You must transport whatever you have produced from one place to the other. You may not necessarily be involved in logistic business, but you must also have some of the goods that must be moved. Take for instance, if you are manufacturing, consumable goods, for instance, then those goods that will be moved from Lagos to Abuja, it will have to be moved by a logistic company. And this logistic company is also, we're going to look at the possibility of whose responsibility is to goods on transit insurance, whose responsibility is that. And then we're also going to look at the possibility of some of the challenges that have been faced, how responsible are the companies. And then we're also going to be asking, some of our discussants here, they have experienced this, especially within this period and what has happened. Because obviously a lot of challenges we are facing today. And most also, we must also realize that in terms of global trade, I think China is getting back, because whether we like it or not, after the COVID-19 came about, now they said, from what we are hearing, it's as if the COVID-19 has actually subsided in China. So they are actually sending in, materials all over the world. But in terms of that, now we also need to know, okay, what is the impact of some of these things? Then we also be asking some of our panelists, and some of us will make some of those contributions. In the areas of, we know, COVID-19 is here. A couple of days ago, the World Health Organization came about because everyone has been going with the World Health Organization's standard. It said COVID-19 will be here for a long time, because it will be just like the normal malaria, because people keep getting it from one person to the other. So it's not something that will go away in the next 1 month or two. So in terms of how people do businesses now, in terms of how people structure their operations, in terms of logistics to save cost and all that, we will be discussing some of this this in this particular conversation. I think I would like to stop here and ask people to let's allow some of our speakers to also make contributions as well. Mrs. Van, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Mr. Ogundare, please, can you probably take one of those questions? Where are we now as logistics companies? Where are we now? And then probably some of the challenges we've been facing during this period, before we go to what happens after the COVID-19 saga.
As for the question of where are we in logistics sector of the economy now, is that at the moment we are having a situation whereby airlines are asking their staff to leave, if including pilots. We're also having disruptions in logistics operations, and the supply chains have been badly affected. Most of the items that were meant for exports, especially for the commodity items that were meant for exports, some of them are still lying down at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport now. Because of the 5 weeks that we went away, there was no operations, and even some of the items that came in, a lot of demurrage has accumulated, that the importers, the agents, are having challenges to try to see how they can seek waiver for the already accumulated demurrage on those items. So, and also you should know that 25% of imports to Nigeria is from China, and 70% of these items are manufactured goods. And so, in the last couple of weeks, 6 weeks or thereabout, no activities from China in terms of items coming to Nigeria. Like I've said, 25% of these imports to Nigeria are from China. So no activities. A lot of everything is at standstill in terms of logistics coming to Nigeria. So this has really affected logistics activity at the moment. And also, in logistics industry, lots of staff are asked to go for now, because there are no activities, and so we have to ask some staff to at least to hold on for now. So these are also an issue too. So also at the port also we are having a lot of because of the issue of queue, a hall that almost dark packed prior to COVID-19. Now staff have to come in 10, in 5, even to the banking hall, and to make payments for custom duties and all those things. They are being affected. Even the banks in Apapa here, a lot of them are not open. They open once a day and close the other day. So this is delaying a lot of activities at the port. So and also the logistics industry at the moment, generally, is being affected because of what is going on. Are we to talk about a loss of life in which over 297 people have died all over the world, and over 4 million people have been affected by the COVID-19. So we are counting, and like Mr. Kenneth have said, nobody you can't just say it's going to go within a short period of time. So how we can position ourselves in the industry, how we can position ourselves to be able to work, to know that it has come to stay, and how we can be able to continue to carry on our business, adopting option B and other methods that will allow our business to continue. I think that is the position, and that is where we are for now concerning the logistics industry.
Okay. Maybe I can let me just ask one question. It's are there measures put in place for the security or safety of your staff, especially the drivers who move goods from one location to the other?
Yes, what we adopt is the guideline that was issued by Lagos State government as to the drivers, the number of people that to go with the trucks, and that how each truck must have a hand sanitizer, how they must have wear their nose mask, face masks, how they must comport with all the security guidelines issued by the World Health Organizations and Lagos State government and Nigeria Disease Control Center. So all those guidelines, we have them, and we ensure that we comply with all those guidelines before we allow our trucks to be on the road, so that the breach of those guidelines can also lead to them being arrested, apart from even the negative impact to their head. So we try as much as possible to see that those most of our truck drivers they don't adhere to all these guidelines. But we try as much as possible to ensure that on our part we make sure that we fulfill all those requirements according to the World Health Organization and Lagos State guidelines on our trucks.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Maybe probably you still come here to look at the challenges and opportunities in exports and global logistics post-COVID-19 as your paper you're taking today.
Yeah. Can I go on right now, or I should?
Yes. Can go on right now.
Yes, I can assure you that COVID-19, like we have said, despite the fact that it has come to stay, there are so opportunities that there is always, we have a lean time and we also have abundant time, or like what we call business cycle, whereby there will be downturn and there will be upturn. So we believe that the upturn is still coming, the abundant time is coming, and in the industry is that everybody should get prepared so that when the upturn come up, we'll be able to fit in. So we believe that in the logistics industry, there are opportunities that are still coming up. As to, for example, the health and pharmaceutical industries, we are having a lot of importations from China all over the world that are coming in on health and pharmaceutical products. Regularly, we are having imports, despite the fact that there are limitations to the number of aircraft that are coming in, but they are still coming in, bringing in health and pharmaceutical products. Also, for essential goods, especially as to regard to the supply chains of food items or transportation of essential items. Transportation of essential items, food, especially food items, is still continue. Even in our economy here, government did not put restrictions as to the movement of trucks, especially for those items that are carrying essential commodities, that are carrying foods. We are still having the logistics business is a boom. I can say it's a boom now concerning essential items, concerning food items. There's always regular requests for all these items to move palliative items from one state to another, from Abuja to Lagos, another state of Nigeria. So I can even say despite the COVID-19, we are even experiencing boom in terms of moving of essential items. Also telecommunication too, because of people working from home now. We have to make sure that we spend a lot on communication now. So also there's a boom in that sector too. So we also believe that the SMEs of Sub-African country have to get themselves prepared and know that and face the challenges ahead, because there are opportunities even that is associated with even with COVID-19. So also the competition in the industry has now become more competitive, and 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 we are looking forward how we will deploy technology, automations in carry out our job, which even has started even before COVID-19, whereby all operations, connectivity to the port, connectivity to the shipping company, to the terminal operations, to the airport, we can do everything within your office. We don't need to go to the airport or go to the physically to the airport or to the, which is also what is obtainable all over the world. Most of the developed countries, they are ports. You don't see people milling around. People operate from their office to carry out their transactions. So from what has happened now, it's an opportunity for us to key into that system whereby you can operate with the port, you can operate with the airline, you can operate with everyone even within the comfort of your office. And that is what we are deploying at the moment. And we believe that even after COVID-19, that is going to continue. Also, it's also this period is also an opportunity for us to enhance the skill of our staff in logistics operations in supply chain business. So we try to enhance their skill so that by the time the coronavirus episode is off, at least the staff, during this period that we are not having much activity, we are also using it to enhance the skill of our staff. So also it's an opportunity for even smaller companies to come into partnership. This is an opportunity for us to come into partnership, for us to work together, for us to see how we can combine our resources as organizations to be able to handle big ticket logistics operations. So we are looking onto that also. Also, the logistics to the NGO is also on the high side, because there is need for them to provide food for vulnerable people in the society. So they are asking for our support to move those palliative items from one place to the other, especially the NGO. So they are also contacting us to be able to move those palliative items from one place to the other. So like I've said, after the coronavirus, there will be job creation, there will be value addition, there will be wealth creation in the economy, and there will be a boost even to our GDP. We believe that all this is going to take place after the COVID-19. So we are very hopeful that the logistics industry is going to be better off even after the COVID-19.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ogundare. We are hopeful that after the COVID-19, that there will be a lot of wealth creation. That's it's hopeful. We are hopeful that there will be more innovations, wealth creations, and also job opportunities. Because I know that during this period, there have been a lot of innovations and creativity that a lot of people have ventured in, especially in the IT area, using IT to, do some of these things that manually would have been done. Thank you for that insight. I don't know if Mr. Stevenson had something to say, as we still wait for Mr. Delano to come in.
I think what might be just a contribution or a question, so to speak, because as has been said, that I would like to bring in the issue of regulation. The regulation in the sense that recently, if you see what Lagos State has tried to do in terms of, in Lagos State now, you see so many bikes that are doing logistics business, so many, they are going all over the places. And Lagos State started climbing down on some of them because they needed to be registered. So what I would like to ask is the fact that to practice, let's go down to the low, the medium level of logistics without international trade now, just this one distribution within Lagos or some, interstate. What are the regulations that are in place currently, and the action of the Lagos state government in terms of clamping down on people? I'd like to ask the presenter whether you have had such information, and do you understand what that is all about?
Yes, like I've earlier mentioned, the Lagos State has already issued guidelines as to movement of trucks, movement of vehicles, movement of tricycle, motorcycles, and all what have you. The issue is that a lot of people are not complying, and that is why you see most of the time there is arrest. You go to most of the police stations, you see arrest of tricycle, motorcycle, vehicles. It's because people are not complying. There will be standard, there will be guidelines issued to us as to what needs to be in place as to the movement of our trucks, movement of even those ones at the lower level that you mentioned, the tricycles, the motorcycle, and all those things. So there are guidelines to be followed. Even prior to COVID-19, guidelines were issued as to where those trucks have to pass, where the motorcycles have to pass, and what has to be in place. So I believe that we, in as much that we are able to comply with those ones, the only area that I see that is a challenge has to do with the security agencies. The security agencies are a kind of compromising, whereby the guidelines are not being followed, whereby they compromise as to, for example, the trucks are not meant to carry passengers, like you have mentioned, and they carry the almajari and what have you in their trucks, and the tricycles has the motors, the Okadas has, it's not allowed to carry passengers, and so which some of them are breaching all those guidelines. So I think the major problem has to do with the securities personnel in maybe overreach their guidelines, or the people that were not following the guidelines, and that's where we witness so many arrests on the roads for logistic trucks, logistic vehicles, and what have you. But I believe that if the security people, the security personnel are doing their job very well, and the people on our logistic sides are also complying with the guidelines issued by Lagos State, we are not likely to have much of those problems.
Well, just going forward on that, I do know, you mentioned when you were discussing that there's been a lot of trades or movement of goods, especially on medicals, equipment, and pharmaceuticals. I know that the World Customs Organization has recently provided a list of harmonized system codes for critical medical equipment that help government and custom agencies to allow for fast-track clearance of goods. But we are hearing, even in Nigeria today, that the ports that don't open, almost, it's just like it's a skeletal services that is going on. And you can see now that if you walk around the ports, today in Lagos, you will be amazed as to the level of, unhealthy movement of trucks, parking of trucks, and we are getting back to what we had before in Lagos State, especially with trucks in Apapa. And this had to do with these goods that are just coming into the country. So now, in this, how we can mitigate this kind of circumstances? And for me, I believe has to do with government actions and implementation. If the ports are to be opened, and then the port is open, all this while this whole pandemic has been around, the port has been open. That's what, maybe not full time, but at least for a particular time. But how come we are still having this congestion? Because we are seeing other goods are not coming. If you are importing anything that has to do with electricity or materials now, it's quite difficult for you to even want to import them, because you don't even want to import. Companies that are into power projects, because of certain kind of circumstances that will make it possible for you to travel to go and do factory assessment before you even import it, not going. But what could be you know, what could be resulting to the fact that we're having this congestion in the at the ports right now? Because as of yesterday, it was also it was bad. All right, and when it keeps going like that, it keeps moving on. Before you know it, I mean, after we've what would we want to see when they say they have removed the lockdown? It's going to be very, very bad. So, from operating from the port's perspective, what is going on here?
Yes, the experience we are having at the port at the moment is, like you have kindly mentioned, is the congestion. And one, it has to do with the shipping companies, the terminal operators. They are not in full operations. With the number of staffs that are working in those organizations, they are not on full-time operations. Even the number of agents, the number of customers that are allowed to operate within their premises are limited. And before you know it, by 3 o'clock, they have to close their shop because of the curfew, which is started by 8 p.m. So, and also there was a guideline as to waiver of the demurrage during the period of the lockdown, and some of these shipping companies, they are not complying. They are yet to comply with that directive by the Nigeria Port Authority that they should waive the demurrage during those periods. So, coupled with all the fact that the roads are still bad, all the roads to the ports in Lagos are still in Apapa and Tinkan, they are still bad. There's a road construction going on in Tinkan to Mile 2 to the Apapa Expressway. So the congestion is still at the port because of the initial problem that was there even before COVID-19. And if those problems are not resolved, it's going to be complicated. By the time the imports start coming in, by the time the COVID-19 is over and normal activities is resuming, we imagine what will have been the position. So the problem with the port has been there, and which has to do with government, the Nigeria Port Authority, all those people that support the security agencies. The security agencies are just stopping vehicles that unnecessarily, because of what maybe they want to, because the need for them to collect money from the transporters, from the drivers, from the agents. So the security agents, all the security agencies are in the port, are on the roads, hindering our movement and stopping our activities. We have so many task force in the port, task force by the Nigeria Customs Services, various task force, up to 3 or 4 task force. So all these things are impediment to trade. All these things are hindering activities at the port, and they have been here before, and they are only being complicated. They are only being compounded during this period. So even despite that the government has given the Federal Minister of Finance has given a concession or created some categories of essential items, pharmaceuticals, everything that can come in. We are not still having them getting cleared. We still having impediment as to with customs on all of this, on all even despite that the concessions are there on pharmaceutical item, food item, and all this thing. We are not getting it right with Nigeria Customs authorities. They are still bringing in impediments that as to clearance of goods at the port. So the way forward is how to minimize human contact within the port. How we can operate from our office without meeting custom officer physically. How you can send your request to customs. How you can send your report to shipping company, terminal operators. How you can operate without meeting them physically. And they will also respond to your inquiry. You get your approval online, and you just go to the port. You just give your approval to the truck driver to go and pick your goods from the port. So until we get to that level in Nigeria, all we are just talking are just discussions and discussion and discussion. Until we get to a point where we operate a visual office, where you can deal with all the stakeholders in the port with minimal physical contact, and that is the only way we can have congestion reduced on our road, congestion reduced on the port, congestions all that we have experienced at the moment, and that is the only way those congestions can be eliminated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
added to what he has said, which he has said that Nigeria needs to go by adopting the necessary technology to ensure that we can do logistics seamlessly. In other words, without any physical contact. Let me offer, my own, also, as an addition to that, some of the positions that I would like to pick here. The essence of, the logistic companies, especially operating this period of COVID-19, is to facilitate trade and transport goods that are very, very important and essential to be able to get rid of COVID-19, which is medicals. And anything done that is against that is going to completely backfire for any country. So logistics should be allowed to operate, seamlessly and without so much of challenges. But that is not what we are seeing across countries, even across the world. Now, one major thing we'd like to look at, it is also important that we ensure that we have uninterrupted shipping. Uninterrupted shipping is then that, like Mr. Gunari has said earlier, we have not had shipping companies laying off, but we've had airlines laying off, all right? Airlines, in fact, in thousands, because the pilots are not, except maybe the pilots that are flying cargo, all right? So, but what is important is that we must ensure, even in Nigeria and globally, we must ensure uninterrupted shipping, because around 80% of the global trade volume is transported by commercial shipping, which is move the world food, energy, raw material, as well as manufactured goods and components. They are all moved from one country to the other. And it's important that we carry this flag and also ensure things move very, very well. Then, secondly, I'd like to say that countries must ensure that they maintain ports and keep the ports open. Because when these goods are coming from different countries, the customs and all the agencies of that or the host countries are going to have to be on duty. Otherwise, you have yourself, your goods in the ports without any clearance. Ports provide essential services to international trade. That's what they are. They need to remain open to ships and international connections. Staggered working hours and non-operation, if not already practiced, can help spread workload and physical contact. Certain restrictions, for example, on weekend operation may need to be lifted during the current emergency. Government needs to ensure that health measures are implemented in ways that minimize interference and interactions with international traffic and trade. All right. And thirdly, protect international trade of critical goods and speed up movement. Like I said earlier on, the World Customs Organization has recently provided a list of harmonized systems and codes for critical medical equipment that must get to the people, like test kits, PPE, and many of these things that are being provided. And government and airport borders agencies need to ensure express clearance of these goods and release of these goods and ensure that they get to the destinations where they will be needed. If you look at what has happened in Nigeria today, the health workers are saying that using our Ankara to make masks is not, well, I don't want to use that word here, but they said that it is not like using a medical mask. The medical masks are made with certain things for that purpose. Our handkerchief is not the same as medical mask. Yes, it can protect to a large extent. However, companies today who are in medical masks, because our abilities to start making medical masks and reduce the level of people who are now using, what you call handkerchief to cover their noses, because it has become something that we must do. And this may go on for quite a long time. But the World Customs Organization has actually put a code that these goods must be moving very seamlessly without so much of interruption. Similarly, and health restrictions should not become a disguised barrier to trade in goods or services. Some measures have to be identified and guidelines by the automated system for custom data. The automated system is the fact that what she was talking about before, must I go to the or to AP Mola at the port, AP terminal, to go and clear my goods? Can't I just have my whole thing sorted out online, check all my things, transfer payments to the bank, they receive it, and all I know is that my truck has moved, it's going to Kaduna, all right? Wouldn't that be ideal at this particular time? Must we have people all over the places at the port? We must remove those barriers. Facilitate cross-border transport. I'm interested in this facilitate cross-border transport because the reason is this. In Nigeria today, we've talked about these logistic companies and the drivers, not the companies now, doing illegal transporting of mamajiris from one state to the other, okay, which is already causing so much problems. Especially now, if you go between now and Benin, by the time you get to Benin at this period, you are possibly going to see trucks all the way to Ofosu from Benin. And these trucks, there may be chicks, day-old chicks, that will be in some of those trucks that cannot stand the heat. And you will have very high mortalities if they go beyond certain levels. And also some other perishable goods. So which means that border transport, the security agencies, the operators must come together to collaborate to ensure, even if you want to now tell the security agencies to say that, look, if you are moving perishable goods, stay on this line. There must be a way that we can ensure cross-border transport goes ahead unhindered. I do know that some state governments in Nigeria today has done something that we may not like. Because when the state government say I have total lockdown, the people who are driving your chicks or your goods or your logistic company says I cannot go to Port Harcourt because they said there is a total lockdown. But in the guideline issued by the federal government and even all the other agencies, they've said that goods and service goods, especially agro-foods, must be allowed to move, because if we are not careful, we are going to have this, very serious food pandemics after all of this, because this is planting season. Therefore, in Nigeria today, we must ensure we facilitate cross-border transport and work with the agencies to ensure that we have a very seamless operation in terms of movement of things. I know that some of these security agencies, sometimes you see the police, sometimes it's the military, sometimes all sorts of agencies. They are on our borders, they are on our highways, okay? And at the end of the day, what happens is that they block the place, they are not even bothered how long you are going to stay. They keep one vehicle for another 30 minutes just asking questions, rather than to say, look, you, since you cannot answer me seamless, go and park and attend to them. They keep them there, okay? And by the time you keep them there, the queue start piling up from one state to the other. And that also, therefore, is a security threat for even logistic companies' drivers. Okay, so it's something that we must also take a look at. And let me also talk about ensure the right of transit, which also falls into this. All countries, including the landlocks and transit countries, need to maintain their access to seaports and the cargo section airports. And I've mentioned some things about this earlier. So we need to be very sure. We must also secure transparency and up-to-date for trading environment. It is particularly important for government to communicate clearly and ensure information is available to all actors and shareholders, and to keep online trade information and help desk updated and operational continuously. Why is this very important? This is very important because we may not know what some of these logistic companies are going through along the borders. Therefore, if the same way you have a hotline for what do you call it now, NCDC, you have a hotline for NCDC. There could be a hotline for logistic companies. Because if a logistic company is going from here to Kaduna and he has all the things, medicals, and he needed to deliver that will save life in Kaduna, and he's head in Benin, okay, for the next how many hours, all right? then what happens to whatever it's going to do? At the end of the day, by the time you get there, you get mortality. What is the use of all those things? So there could be a hotline also in terms of the transit areas for logistic companies to be able to operate within. Yes, the security will check them along the way, but these goods have been cleared at the ports. There shouldn't be any reason why a custom man will stop them in the Djibouti again, all right? Because, these things have been cleared in the ports, all right? So what you see is a custom man that will stop a logistic company that is just going to distribute Indomie to Benin, all right? And the customer will keep them there for another 24 hours. Indomie is manufactured in Nigeria, all right? Why do you need to keep them in Benin? You search and see that it's Indomie. But what you see is the custom office of the officials will stop them in Benin or in Djibouti for another 24 hours trying to find out where are you bringing Indomie, whether it's imported Indomie or not. So some of these things, there must be seamless way of working. Mr. Ogunari has talked about, my seventh position, which is what we say working seamlessly. Let's go paperless. Let's go paperless in terms of logistics. A physical contact between people needs to be minimized. Electronic submission and paperless transactions become ever more important at this period and going forward post-COVID-19. Because what developed now, we will continue to maintain along the way. But I do know the challenges in Nigeria. If someone, maybe some officials, we don't need to hide some of these things, for corruption reasons wants to see you, go and let your boss come and see me first, all right? By the time we are able to adopt some certain policies, there won't be things of that nature. Although goods still needs to be moved physically, clearance operations and the exchange of information should make use of existing electronics data interchange as much as possible. And that will also ensure we facilitate trade. And also we need to address early on legal implication for commercial parties. I talked about the legal information because the reason is very simple. Let's look at the possibility of insurance. Who is actually responsible for goods on transit insurance? When you are importing your goods from India, for instance, and they give you a goods on transit insurance for a certain number of days, if it's delayed above that, beyond that date at your destination, which is Nigeria at the ports, and the insurance lapse, what happens? Because the country that the thing is, where the thing is coming from, the shippers from that end will say, I'm no longer responsible. So we need to protect shippers, transport services providers alike. Everybody needs protection. And also the people who are the drivers, are they insured? All right, so we need to check about some of these things and be sure that going forward, this COVID-19 is well, as bad as it may be, is a wake-up call for countries and businesses. We need to prioritize technical assistance and a few other things. Also, we need to be sure that we do this very seamlessly. Companies also who are operating in this industry need to take advantage of technology. Now, like for instance now, in terms of the companies who are using logistic companies, must be able to know that, fine, I can also use, or even logistic companies, I can use gas as part of my transportation logistics. In other words, Greenville, for instance, is providing gas as an alternative to your fuel in your vehicles or your trucks. And that saves a lot of cost, maybe 50% or more. And so companies need to start thinking in that direction as to how do I cut costs? Because there have been a lot of losses by companies at this period. How do you recover these costs? Because it's going to have to involve you using technology. Technology in the sense that if LNG is going to save me 60% of my logistic things in terms of diesel and for moving from here to Kano, why don't I use LNG instead so that I can quickly recover some of the losses I've made? So this is the time to start thinking outside the box. By both logistic companies, even if you are owning the trucks or what have you, is it possible now for you to put LNG in your truck, and when you are leasing to a company that's going to use you, like Flour Mills and all that, you can offer a lower price, all right, because you are using LNG instead of diesel. So what is important is that we must continue to innovate, and we must continue to see the logistics as a priority sector. We are seeing manufacturers, the flour mills and everyone donating food items and things to help government to navigate this COVID-19. Fantastic. But it's going to, whether we like it or not, reflect on the bottom line. The bottom line in the sense that sometimes maybe tax waivers or what have you, but at the end of the day, it's going to reflect on the bottom line. Well, how do we navigate those things? I was trying to round up by saying that logistic companies should endeavor to, as much as possible, start thinking about using other alternative fuel. The whole world is thinking of cutting costs. That's why you are seeing people manufacturing electric cars and all of that. In Nigeria today, like we know, there is a company, Greenville LNG, that is producing, that can modernize or add to your truck what you call LNG to drive your vehicle from one location to the other, several kilometers. That will reduce your cost in terms of what you spend on diesel, because we do know that whether we like it or not, gas is still the cheapest and the oil of the future. And if that kind of thing is, the opportunity is available in Nigeria, that you can use it to power your vehicle without any interruption, or your trucks, certain kilometers. Even the trucks that are already in place now can be modernized to that level. I think logistic companies should start thinking very, very fast about that. And to also the companies that are producing material should start thinking about going that way. I do know also that manufacturers, some of them are currently using gas, because you need to save money. You have lost so much and you don't want to lay off so many people, because at the end of the day, when the boom comes, what's happened? You start to employ at a higher rate, and that's what's going to happen. So the ones you can keep now, you keep them, and now start saying, how do I navigate this particular loss? By not, even if we were making 10 billion before and annually, what if we make 2 billion now, all right, and still keep our human capital in place, because the boom will still come, whether we like it or not. So we have to start thinking outside the box and be able to maintain our own operations as much as possible. And that's just where I wanted to round up.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Udari, I don't know if you have your last word for logistics company.
Yeah, one or two or more issues I just like to add is that the logistics companies and all other organizations, whatever, should know that, one, there are alternative ways to work. The implication of COVID-19 has shown businesses that there are equally efficient ways of working. Businesses should now be looking for those efficient ways and ensure that they can be sustained even after COVID-19. So we should always be thinking, be creative of better ways, alternative ways to achieve our result moving forward even after COVID-19. Also, to embrace the visual world, which I've mentioned, and government has a role to play in this regard by ensuring that connectivity to all stakeholders, especially government agencies. Private sectors are doing their best. All the shipping companies, the terminal operators, they are doing their best about this connectivity. But more is still expected from government agencies, customs, immigration, NAFDAC. There should be connectivity. There should be a portal where everyone can meet. So moving forward, government should see how they can give support in that area. And also the issue of all the impediments to movement of trucks, movement of vehicles on the road by government officials, by government security agencies, like it has been rightly suggested, whereby maybe there should be an hotline where anybody that's having challenges can call and mention their challenges. So also, we should know that there are better days ahead, better times ahead. The downturn will turn to upturn, and the economy will come back to normal. So people should get prepared for the time that the better time will come. Everybody should get prepared for those. People should strategize and prepare for what will happen after this COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we are going home with a lot of solutions, suggestions that can be deployed after COVID-19. And there's something that both of you have said is that COVID-19 has actually come to stay. It may not just be totally eradicated. It may just be like malaria that comes and you treat and all that. So we shouldn't be looking at a time where we'll say, okay, we are coming back in full force to our businesses because COVID-19 has actually come to an end. So all companies, whether private or public, should have this at the back of their minds, that this thing actually has come to stay. And then we should put things in place, machineries in place to work even with it. And like you said, Mr. Wundare, that this downturn is going to, there's going to be upturn, and then there's going to be wealth creation and all that. But very importantly is that government and private companies should look for alternative ways to work. Alternative ways to work to be efficient. We should all go technology. Everybody should, be able to deploy one or two technologies to make their work effective, and there should be less contact. It is achievable. Other countries are achieving that, and Nigeria also should be able to achieve that. Then Mr. Silverstein is saying that the shippers should be given free hand to bring in uninterrupted shipping, to bring in things to the country, but also there should be measures to make sure that these things that are brought into the country are safe. Even for the truck movers to move them, they should be safe. There should be also measures to check that they are free from these viruses and all that. So I don't know if Mr. Silverstein has a last word for us before we draw the curtain on this conversation this afternoon.
I would like to just, my last word would be to all the actors, because we are all actors in this business.
Yeah.
It's either you consume goods that have been moved, or you are also helping to move the goods. And like I said, I said earlier, 80% of the goods will move, trades across the globe is done by one logistics or the other. And what I would like to also implore the government of nations to do is to look very critically in terms of what could be done to have a seamless operation by logistic companies, especially where it comes to essential products.
Okay.
Moving, you can have, what do you call it now? You can have a power, plant, or maybe some of the power components at the ports for 2 months without anything really happening to it. Mm-hmm. There are some goods that you cannot even have at the port for 24 hours. So, which is the same thing as having some goods that you are moving between one country, one border in a country to another state. And there must be a way where things can move seamlessly without necessarily creating crisis along the way. And also, we like to also say the fact that in terms of regulations, allow yourself to have, if you are operating a logistic in Lagos State and there is a place to register your operations so that at least you can operate, because at the end of the day, sometimes these security agencies, but when they stop you, the amount of money you used to pay yourself, we used to do registration. So logistic companies should also play by the rules and register. And very importantly, at this particular period, we must take the issue of goods on transit interstates very seriously. And it's insurance for the drivers. These are very, very key things that I needed to leave with.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been a great day. We appreciate everybody that's been here, has attended this webinar. Once again, thank you for joining us today. We will see you next time that we'll have another webinar on logistics. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.